Hello, we are going to finish talking about the movement gaining ground today. We're still talking about civil rights. We are still in the same textbook. All right, the movement marches on Washington. To put pressure on Congress to pass new civil rights bill, supporters made plans for a massive demonstration in Washington, D.C. The event brought together the major civil rights groups, including the NAACP, the SCLC, and the SNCC, as well as labor unions and religious groups. The March on Washington took place on August 28, 1963. Organizers had hoped for 100,000 demonstrators. More than double that number showed up, having made the journey to the Capitol from around the country. Before the march, there had been some concern about maintaining order at such a huge demonstration. Yet, despite the massive numbers, the day was peaceful and even festive. Popular celebrities and entertainers were on hand to perform for the crowd. The main rally took place in front of the Lincoln Memorial, where a distinguished roster of speakers addressed the crowd. The highlight of the day came when Martin Luther King Jr. took the podium. King held the audience spellbound as he described his dream of a colorblind society where all God's children would be free and equal. Millions more watched King's address live on television. The powerful and eloquent speech has come to be known as the I Have a Dream speech. Behind the scenes, there was some tension between the organizations that had planned the march. SNCC in particular had wanted to stage a more militant protest to show its dissatisfaction with the pace of change. Yet, for the public at large and most who took part, the March on Washington represented a magical moment in American history. So, checkpoint. What is considered the highlight of the March on Washington? And that is King's speech, his I Have a Dream speech, and I'm sure you're all familiar with it. So, Congress passes the Civil Rights Act of 1964. On September 15, 1963, less than 3 weeks after the march, a bomb exploded in the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham. The church had been the SCLC's headquarters earlier that spring. 4 young African American girls, all dressed in their Sunday best, were killed in the bombing. 2 months later, on November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson assumed the presidency. Johnson was a Southerner with an undistinguished record on racial matters. However, he surprised many Americans by immediately throwing his support behind the cause of civil rights. No eulogy could be more eloquently honor President Kennedy's memory, Johnson told Congress and the nation, than the earliest passage of the Civil Rights Bill for which he fought for so long. The Civil Rights Bill faced strong opposition in Congress, but Johnson put his considerable political skills to work for its passage. The bill passed in the House of Representatives, but it faced a more difficult fight in the Senate, where a group of Southern senators attempted to block it by means of a filibuster. This is a tactic by which senators give long speeches to hold up legislative business. The filibuster went on for more than 80 days until supporters finally put together enough votes to overcome it. In the end, the measure passed in the Senate, and President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 into law in July. The act banned segregation in public accommodations and gave the federal government the ability to compel state and local school boards to desegregate their schools. The act also allowed the Justice Department to prosecute individuals who violated the people's civil rights and outlawed discrimination in employment on account of race, color, sex, or national origin. It also established the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC, which is responsible for enforcing these provisions and investigating charges of job discrimination. So, checkpoint. How did the Civil Rights Act of 1964 try to end discrimination? It tried to end discrimination by forcing school boards to desegregate, by desegregating all public places, and also ensuring that you couldn't be discriminated against in employment. So that wraps up our talking about the civil rights movement and how it gained ground. We will continue talking about civil rights in the next set of videos, but until then, I want you guys to stay safe.